What's up, y'all? And welcome back to The Quiet Loud with me, DeAntony Collins, the place where calm meets conviction and chaos meets clarity. But before we dive in, if you've been rocking with the podcast on YouTube, please make sure you hit subscribe and drop a 5-star review if you're on Apple or Spotify, and tell a friend that real talk still exists. All right, now today's episode bridges everything we love here: humanity, innovation, and accountability. From a dog named Oakley who outsmarted a fire, to AI rewriting biology, to a shutdown rewriting America's priorities. This one's got a lot of range. So let's start where warmth still wins. Let's get into the trending whisper. Our first story comes from Aurora, Illinois, where a Staffordshire Terrier named Oakley became an instant hero. When a fire broke out in his home, responding officer Michael Nikolich's body cam captured Oakley calmly guiding him to his own leash before exiting through the smoke. The video went viral on X, on TikTok, local outlets, with millions moved by how instinctively this dog understood what to do. Check this out.
Aurora police, anybody in here? Got him. Hey, buddy, come on. Come on. Come here, buddy. Come here. You're a good boy. Come on, Oakley. This way, Oakley.
Aurora's fire department called it a model rescue under pressure. And as a proud Staffie owner myself, shout out to my boy Leo, this one hits home. And it reminds us that loyalty and clarity under fire don't always have to walk on two legs. All right, next up, straight out of science fiction and quite real, researchers at Stanford University collaborating with Georgia Tech just used artificial intelligence to design and generate viral genomes that successfully infected bacteria. Yeah, this tech uses large language models, similar to the ones that help write your essays or your resumes, but instead of text, they're predicting sequences of DNA. One researcher told Popular Mechanics, quote, "This shows AI's power to innovate biology faster than regulation can react." Check this out.
You won't believe this. AI just created living viruses, and some of them are deadlier than anything nature created. I know this sounds like science fiction, but it's not. This is a study where researchers successfully taught AI to write the genetic code for entirely new life forms. And here's how they did it. They took two AI models called Evo1 and Evo2. These aren't your typical chatbots. These are genome language models that can read your entire DNA. These models were built using transformer architecture, the same technology behind ChatGPT. So they fed these AIs the genetic.
The implications here are staggering. It's a biotech miracle and a biosecurity nightmare. It's proof that the tools of progress are only as ethical as the hands that wield them. And honestly, that line hits home way beyond the lab. It's also politics, it's media, it's leadership. And for our cosmic whisper, scientists are buzzing about Saturn's moon Enceladus because new analyses of NASA's Cassini data show organic molecules, phosphorus, and energy sources in its subsurface ocean. NASA Jet Propulsion Lab reported that this is the strongest evidence yet that Enceladus could support microbial life. Astrobiologist Dr. Morgan Cable put it plainly, quote, "When there's water, energy, and chemistry, life has a fighting chance." Check this out.
Scientists have found a key ingredient for life on Enceladus, meaning that one of Saturn's moons is much more habitable than we thought. Enceladus is an icy moon about 310 miles wide, or 74 Las Vegas strips, with surface temperatures as cold as negative 330 degrees. But it is not as inactive as it appears. Beneath its icy surface is an ocean of liquid water. Plumes of water vapor are constantly erupting from the surface, and it's believed they originate from geothermal activity happening on the ocean floor, creating not only heat and energy in the water, but with the right ingredients, possible life as well. NASA's Cassini.
These ice plume jets shooting into space aren't just stunning visuals. They're windows into alien oceans. Imagine life not as we know it, but as it might be. Proof that curiosity still matters. Because sometimes in a week this heavy, we need to be able to look up and remember we are but a speck on this vast, vast universe. We've got a lot of stories to get caught up on. Trump and co. are trying to flood the zone, a tactic right out of the authoritarian playbook. So let's go ahead and get into the quiet countdown. All right, the shutdown deepens. Middle class in the crosshairs. As of this week, the government shutdown drags on, driven by House Republicans aligned with Donald Trump. According to AP News and Reuters, 800,000 federal workers are furloughed or working without pay. Even though a 2019 law guarantees back pay, many agencies like NASA, the CDC, and NIH are mostly shut. The Department of Defense has furloughed 55% of their civilian workforce, but active military remains. Agencies like the Bureau of Labor Statistics have halted all reporting. That means no jobs data, no inflation tracking, and no accountability whatsoever. The New York Times confirms the ACA's subsidies and child care block grants will lapse by month's end if this impasse continues. And while working families feel it, billionaires and defense contractors, Trump's donor class, are largely insulated from it all. The shutdown isn't about fiscal responsibility. It's a manufactured crisis, okay? As economist Paul Krugman wrote this week, when chaos is the strategy, suffering becomes the goal, end quote. Democrats must hold firm and call this what it is. This is economic terrorism against the middle class, y'all. Back to the chaos in the House. Arizona's Adelita Grijalva still hasn't been sworn in. Republicans delay, but we're demanding that this action happen because they know why they aren't swearing her in. But meanwhile, pressure is mounting on Speaker Johnson to say nothing of the ultimatums swirling on the internet. But I ain't wanting to gossip. But if some news gets made here, some verified news gets made here, then I'll bring it back. All right? This stall isn't procedural. It's strategy. They want this government closed. But what remains to be seen is exactly why. So, at the end of last month, at Quantico, around September 30th, Trump addressed hundreds of generals and admirals unexpectedly flown in from across the world and told them to prepare for the, quote, enemy within. He said cities like San Francisco, New York, and Chicago are unsafe and should be straightened out, quote, one by one, suggesting that the military be used domestically as training grounds. CBS News confirms he referenced an August executive order to, quote, help quell civil disturbances. The implications are staggering, though. A president ordering military posture against civilian governance? Critics call it a constitutional red line. I call it crazy and completely unwarranted. The Times Union warns that this blurs lawful civil order with martial policing. But this isn't rhetoric, guys. This is the Trump MAGA doctrine. All right, real quick, have a look at this clip from today. Stephen Miller saying the quiet part out loud. Check this out.
National Guard in Oregon legal insurrection. Does the administration still plan to abide by that ruling?
Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue. We'll try to fix that and get back to you after a quick...
I mean, amazing. You hear him talking about plenary authority. That refers to him believing, or his belief, that Donald Trump has absolute authority when it comes to deploying any kind of military. He can send them where, for whatever, for what reason, and he can't be checked. Pretty much, Sam... separation of powers and checks and balances be damned. We're not talking about that anymore. He can say whatever he wants. But notice how he realized that he messed up. He froze like a glitch in the Matrix. He didn't say anything else. Now, I really believe they should have pressed him on what he meant by what he said. And I know it's going to come up because it instantly went viral. So if something new comes up in this space, if and when it does, I will bring it back to you in the next episode. Yesterday, in Capitol Hill, Attorney General Pam Bondi faced Senate Democrats in a committee hearing that devolved into a complete spectacle. Bondi was aggressively pressed over the deployment of National Guard troops to Democratic cities. Her refusal to answer questions about the Epstein-related files, investigations into critics like Comey, Schiff, and Letitia James. Comey, of one who has actually been indicted and had his first court appearance today. On Wednesday. I'm recording this on Wednesday. She repeatedly evaded direct answers, accusing Democrats of hypocrisy while defending the DOJ's choices. They're questionable choices, if you ask me. Senator Dick Durbin accused her DOJ of undermining institutional integrity by refusing oversight and warning the department is now a political tool. Republicans attempted to defend her lines, but the weight of the accusations and her own timing mid-shutdown, mid-deployment, wasn't just a bad performance, y'all. It was a reveal. Who she shields and who she serves. It darn sure is not the American people, okay? But in the halls of justice, the Supreme Court rejected Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal, leaving her 20-year sentence intact. I will go ahead and say, good job for doing what you are supposed to do, Supreme Court. All right. CNN report that Trump himself said he'd, quote, review a potential pardon, sending chills through pretty much everybody that heard it. This is the accountability imbalance, guys. The message that it sends to powerful elites is when the law is weak and redemption for one smells like impunity for everyone else. Okay. So we can't let her get away with this. And especially without saying anything about it. The Supreme Court not taking it up is probably about the best thing they could do, but he can still pardon her. He can still pardon her because it was federal. But that would be quite telling, knowing exactly what he's doing there. And for somebody who campaigned on justice for the victims and this, that, and the other, and then to completely do a 180 and have his administration and all of his other, sycophants and cronies just do a turn on the dime. Guess what? Even his supporters aren't taking that lightly, and he's having breaks with staunch supporters even like Marjorie Taylor Greene. All right, so there's cracks in that armor. We just need to stay on that. Moving on. Across the continents, Trump negotiating a $20 billion support deal for Argentina. Senators Klobuchar and Warren and others slammed a bailout plan that undercuts U.S. soybean exports after Argentina removed export taxes and China swooped right in and bought the soybeans. So we have now bailed them out, which this tariff war was already hurting farmers here domestically. And now that you've bailed them out, they undercut us by dropping their export prices. And then China, who was our largest buyer of American soybeans, went ahead and bought theirs instead. So you know that U.S. farmers, and a lot of them were supporters of Donald Trump, are feeling betrayed now. So much for America first, right? It's a global magnifying glass on flawed priorities of Donald Trump and his cronies. So let's move over to the job slump and what's going on there. With the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, offline, we're left with private enterprises data. Okay, we're getting that from ADP. And their data says that 89,000 new private sector jobs was the number they came up with. But that's muted. That's pretty muted growth, okay? Especially since the expectation was around 150,000 jobs created in the private sector. All right, but that's the weakest number we've seen in 2 years, and that's per ADP's own release. Now, economists are saying that without the BLS data, the figure becomes gospel, even when we know it's incomplete, but we're not getting the governmental information. So we only have an incomplete picture here. It's like building a house while blind, okay? Workers and small businesses are the ones that are suffering first, but the damage is accumulating. Believe that. But there is some flicker of a fight on the other side. I mean, we've seen what Governor Gavin Newsom is doing in California. When Trump reared his head toward Maryland, we saw Wes Moore stand up against him. And Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer has also worked to form a coalition with them, vowing to defend healthcare, voting rights, and reproductive access in their own states, despite what's happening with the federal gridlock. Axios is reporting that they're mobilizing cross-state partnerships to keep services running for affected workers. But in Congress, Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Raphael Warnock are calling for public pressure, not silence, to force Speaker Mike Johnson's hand. And I totally agree with that. We have to stay on this, guys. We have to keep yelling and shouting and calling and emailing and showing up at town hall meetings and everything to make sure that they know what we feel and that we're not going to take this, okay? As Warnock told MSNBC, quote, faith without works is dead, and democracy without courage is too, end quote. Totally believe that. Could this be a pivot moment that we've been waiting for? I really hope so, guys. I really hope so. I hope this is the turn of the tide. I hope that, Democratic officials and, civilians who have been sitting on the sidelines wondering what they could do finally start to realize that stepping up and saying something is the first half of the battle, okay? We have to make our opinions known, and we have to make them known to our representatives, okay? So they can't run and they can't hide and go out and say what the American people want, knowing full well that the American people have told them what we need. And if they aren't going to represent us, then we know what to do. We can turn this tide, but we have to wake up. We have to get smart. We have to discern the real from the fake. And I know that that's getting really difficult nowadays, but we need to band with each other and get with folks that we trust and share that information out. All right? Yeah. So we moved from Oakley's charity in the fire to machines writing life to Saturn's secrets and back around to America's darkest crossroads. The fires abroad can't distract us from the conflagration happening at home. But I need you guys to share this episode. Subscribe on YouTube. Drop your 5-star review, because intelligence without ethics burns the same as fire without control. Okay? As always, I want you to be loud in your listening and be real in your truth. I'm DeAntony Collins, and this has been The Quiet Loud.